Welcome back, everyone, to the Mastering Runeterra podcast with Jay and Bay. We got a great show for you today. We're going to go over all of the Invoke cards, the cards that get them, the actual Celestials themselves, when you should get them, why, how much they cost, all that good stuff. Before we jump into that, though, gotta talk to you a little bit about our Patreon and our Discord. We've got a great community that we're building there. If you're looking to improve at Runeterra, please come join us in the Discord. We have the fantastic people in there are just helping each other out all the time to improve. It's free to join. The Patreon that we have going, there's tiers from $2 up to $100. So for whatever you're looking for, if you're looking just to join tournaments like the $1,000 tournament we are going to be hosting next month, or if you're looking to join some of our learning calls that we do twice a week, or if you're looking for one-on-one coaching sessions with either of us, we've got all that over on our Patreon. All the links to that stuff will be down below. And with that said, let's jump into today's topic. Bay, what do you say?
I'm excited. Celestials are a big part of the game right now with Targon's dominance. All the Aphelios decks running around, you really got to know what to pick, when to pick it, and how to use it. So definitely some good information.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things that has like a really high ceiling. Like there's just a lot to unpack there. I remember when I was new to the game, invoking was like kind of crazy. Like I didn't even know what all the cards were that could be invoked, or when they could be grabbed, and that's a huge piece of information that you really need to know if you're going to play this game at any sort of competitive level. Even if you're not playing with the cards yourself, you need to know what your opponent is going to be capable of doing. So I think this is going to be a good one, because also figuring out the options of like when you're supposed to get things against certain opponents, like it's just very, very important.
Yeah. It's tough to make a plan if you don't know what you can get or what your opponent can get, right? It's really hard to play. It's really hard to play a cohesive game plan if it's 6 of your cards in your deck. You have no idea what the possibilities are. That was what I was running into so much trouble when I started playing was, yeah, I could cast like the Lunary Priestess, but then I had no idea what I was getting. No clue. Like when I could see the cards, I could go, "Oh yeah, this seems pretty good," right? But like I didn't know, I didn't even know what I was hoping to get because I didn't know what the cards were.
Totally.
So yeah, we're gonna go over all of them today. Talk about when you should pick them, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into it. So there are cards that limit you. There's some cards that will let you get any invoke card. And then there's a lot of them that limit you to specific casting costs of invoke cards. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. There are 3 cards that will let you get an invoke card that costs 3 or less. And these are pretty widely played, and so you'll see these a lot. One is Spacey Skecher. That's a 1/1 for 1. When you play the Sketcher, you can discard a card in your hand to get an Invoke card that costs 3 or less. Another one is the super cool star chart that you will get from Zoe striking the opposing Nexus. And the third one is the Fangs, a 4 casted 3/2 creature with lifesteal, very powerful, sees quite a bit of play. So all 3 of those can get a 3 or less converted mana cost invoke card, of which there are 8 possibilities. And because you do get 3 to pick from, you are sitting around a 50-50 chance of getting any one of them. It might be a little bit less than that. But
less. It's between like 40 and 45, I believe,
of getting any one card. And then I guess it gets a little bit better if you're trying to get one of like any 2 cards, which is another like, if I want like this card or that card, it's I guess a little bit better than 50-50. So let's dive into those, Bay. Maybe start at the bottom and we'll work our way up.
Yeah. So the first one, Moonlight, 0 mana burst spell. It reduces the cost of a card in your hand by 1. I did not used to take this card ever, unless it was like incredibly useful at that moment. But with the release of Temple for Targon, I have started to take it a lot more because it allows you to get that Temple activation is like super easy, right? Even if you play Temple on 4, if you have Moonlight, you can Temple on 4, Moonlight, and cast like anything. Get the Temple activation, get the mana back, +1/+1. So I started using that a lot, and I take it a lot when I play Karma because it just makes things cost 2 less. Probably the one I take the least. You'll know when it's good. This one is I feel like usually pretty easy to go, oh, I want this here, or oh, I don't want this here. If you are lacking on cards, don't take this. If you have a lot of cards, but they cost too much, maybe it lets you play your Eclipse Dragon a turn early or something when normally you wouldn't do anything that turn. This is when you want Moonlight. It's also very helpful with cycling Aphelios weapons. It lets you go through 2 in a turn like very, very easily. So yeah, those are the situations where I normally use it. Other than that, I don't use it very much. It's probably my least picked one, like I said.
Yeah, I struggle when to take this one as well. And I used to not take it ever. But yeah, when your hand's kind of expensive or you have like a certain plan with it, that's when I end up taking it. Yeah, definitely very skill intensive. The Moonlight. Okay, what's next?
All right. Next we have Serpent. The Serpent. It's the 0 mana 2/1 with Challenger, the snake. I look for this one a ton. This is probably my most picked Invoke for 3 or less. It's just so strong early, which is why I end up taking it so often, because you know, usually when you're invoking 3 or less, you're doing it early in the game. You're using it turn 1, turn 2, 3, or 4 off Fangs. And so yeah, Serpent can trade with Zoe or Felios, which is huge, so swingy. And also something that comes up a ton is it's a way for you to deal with Twisted Fate. So I really like this one. Another thing, it triggers Temple, which is great. You can pump it up to 3 power pretty easily by just going like Temple, Serpent, whatever, Guiding Touch, Pale Cascade, whatever you want to do. It'll pump it up. Just a super, super strong card. Sometimes when I invoke early in the game against a Twisted Fate deck, I'll hold it until like I'll just keep it in my hand. Because when they play I don't want them to know that I have it, and then when they play a Twisted Fate, then I play it and I go after it. That way, it's not vulnerable to like a red card or a Mystic Shot or anything. Yeah, love this one. I take it all the time.
Yeah, same here. Really versatile card at literally any point in the game. And like you say, holding it in your hand for that key moment, there's lots of times you'll see players do that, and their opponent will think that they're, you know, out of mana, they can't do anything perhaps, and then they'll drop the Serpent, like pull a blocker or like you say, remove a key creature. Another common one that I end up using it for is even just if I hit them on turn 1 with a Zoe, and then I super cool star chart on turn 2, maybe just using it for a blocker against an aggressive deck. Yeah, that comes up quite often. Yeah, the Serpent just, you know, you basically almost can't go wrong taking the Serpent. Like if you just defaulted to taking it every time, you'd be right a lot more than not.
Yeah. It's very good, very good. So yeah, I take that one the majority of the time. Don't just default to taking it, but if you're absolutely lost and you don't know what to do, it's not the worst thing ever. Yep. Equinox is an interesting one, and it has shut down a lot of strategies actually because of just how powerful it is. 1 mana is basically nothing, right? 1 spell mana, especially, basically nothing. And it just absolutely shuts down some cards. Ledros doesn't go back to hand anymore. The Swain Boat, the Leviathan, no longer has Overwhelm. It doesn't ping you at the start. It loses, like, now it's just a vanilla 5 power creature. Like, it's just not very strong anymore. Equinox also comes up. There's a lot of play patterns right now in Targon mirrors where you have an Aphelios or a Zoe, and they get Boxtopus, be it through playing it or Crescendum, and you super cool Star Chart or Spacey Skecher, and you look for either Equinox or Crescent Strike, which we'll get to later, to stun it or silence it to get rid of the Challenger to keep your champions alive. That comes up a ton. Yeah, I take Equinox a lot. I've started taking it more often now that the Watcher is the preferred win condition of the Lysandra Trundle deck. I will start taking that sometimes as early as turn 1 or 2, just to have it right for that turn. I know is coming when they play 3 Watchers. I need to be ready to deal with it. So yeah, Equinox, very flexible, very powerful card.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, Equinox 1 mana, permanently silence a follower, not a champion, just a follower. If only, if only it
If
could hit
only. Oh my
champions.
god, that'd be the most disgusting card on the planet.
Yeah,
Would hate being
it's
that.
already pretty good. Other use cases, bots that are getting big and
Yes,
throwing out ignitions. Um,
elusive units.
Elusive units is a very common target. Overwhelm units,
Hmm.
fearsome, all those. Get rid of those keywords. Even some of the larger creatures, the invoke creatures that we're going to be talking about later, make very good targets because
Oh
they
yeah.
are just jam packed with keywords. So yeah, Equinox,
Yep.
another one that I get quite often, is very versatile. So definitely keep your eye out for that.
Yep. All right. Next on the list, we have the Charger, a 1 mana 4/1 overwhelm. Not my ideal pick out of all of them. Not a bad card by any means. It pushes like a 1 mana 4/1 with overwhelm is insane on value, right? But the Targon decks that invoke are usually not looking to run you over because the invoke cards are so mana inefficient. Um, for their stat lines, usually like Lunary Priestess is a 1/2 for 3. You're not beating anyone down with that. So you don't usually take this to be incredibly aggressive unless you can combine it with like Temple and Aphelios guns. Usually when I take it, it's because I need a blocker or I want the easiest way to trigger Temple or Aphelios to get another gun, right? Because it's 1 mana. I can play it, then play Aphelios, or I could play like a gun and then play Charger and still have plenty of mana left over to play my other gun. Um, yeah, the overwhelm sometimes is helpful. Sometimes it gets really big through temples and Aphelios guns, but normally I pass this one up. I would prefer to draw an extra card off Messenger. I would prefer the flexibility of Equinox or the 0 mana and Challenger of Serpent.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't get it too often. I find that when I am grabbing it, it tends to be because I want to use it defensively. So I use it a
Yes.
lot to block fearsome creatures. Maybe sometimes you throw it in front of just a 4 toughness creature. There's the 6/4 spell shield overwhelm that can
Rune
be
Runner.
difficult to deal with. Rune Runner, yeah. So I mean, not great. You're still going to take 5 overwhelm damage there, but at least you can deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least you can kill it. Whereas sometimes you really struggle there to kill that creature. Yeah, so typically only really grabbing it defensively if for some reason the serpent's not going to get the job done. And those are kind of 2 of the common ones that pop up.
I take it a lot versus the Ash decks because they normally don't have Overwhelm in the power
Okay,
matters. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
It blocks very well, and it's 1 mana. It gets around Culling Strike. You can pump it out of Reckoning range. Like very strong in that matchup.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All
What's
right, let's
next?
move on to a little more exciting card. The Messenger, 2 mana doggo, draws a card. It's a 2/2. This
Good
card's very
boy.
strong. Good boy, the best, the goodest boy.
The goodest boy.
I take this. I take this card a lot. Usually towards the late game because it's a body that draws you a card. Um, so if I'm like digging towards something, I'm looking for my Lee Sin or an Aurelian Soul or a Star Shaping or whatever. Then I'm taking Messenger just to churn through. Um, Also, it blocks well. It's a 2/2. That's a solid stat line. Blocks okay. Um, it's still not one I take the most. I prefer the flexibility of some of the spells more, but I do take it. I take it more than the other units outside of Serpent for sure. Very strong on like turn 6 and on, I think, because 2 mana is like barely anything, but a whole nother card is worth a lot once you get to like those big mana stages in the game. It's pretty easy to trigger Temple off of while still drawing you more gas to continually keep triggering Temple. Super good card. I often get excited when I get to combine it with Homecoming When I can bounce it back to my hand and play it again, I'm like, haha, I got him.
A
For that
blue
free value.
mage for sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
gotta get that value. Oh,
I
drew
just
an
want to
extra
draw cards.
card.
Oh
Oh,
my
so good.
card advantage.
And bounce. It did something else. Drew a card and did something. Oh,
Wow,
so good.
so strong.
Yeah. Literally the bestest dog. I think if you want a default, actually, the messenger is probably the best default. Because
you
it
cannot go wrong when you pick messenger.
yeah. Yeah, because it's going to draw you a card from your deck, which is definitely going to be good. You definitely want more cards from your deck.
You put them in there for a reason, right?
Right?
they shouldn't suck.
Exactly. Yeah, and so basically if you're ever at a loss, anytime you just don't need anything specific, I guess one thing I should mention is that I like to look at the Invoke cards typically as sort of like a toolbox. I often refer to it as like a Swiss Army knife, where it's like, oh, like whatever you need, you go get that thing. If you need to silence something, grab that. If you need to kill something, or grab an Equinox. If you need to kill something, grab a Serpent. If you need to block something, grab a Charger. And so all these different cards have different use cases. But if you're just kind of chilling in the game, there's nothing you really need to answer, because they are mostly answers. There's like a lot less threats in this package.
In the small celestial package, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're in those sort of situations, yeah, grab the messenger and just throw a good boy on the board and draw yourself another card.
I take messenger a lot when I'm ahead.
Mm-hmm. Push an advantage. Yeah.
I don't need unless I'm in a matchup where like I know I'm going to need one of the answers, right? Playing against Fior Shen, I want Crescent Strike. I know I'm gonna want Equinox, Vista Watcher, stuff like that. Messenger's totally fine to just take when you're ahead, because it puts a body on board and draws you another card. It just keeps digging a hole for your opponent. So yeah, don't take it as often when I'm behind, unless I'm behind because I need more cards. Then I definitely take it.
Yeah.
But its 2-mana counterpart, Moonglow. Slow speed spell. Give an ally +0/+2 and spell shield. Very powerful effect. The slow speed keeps it from being like incredibly strong, because if I just like put it on my Zoe, they can just Mystic Shot her in response, and that's kind of rough. I take this not super often. I took it a lot more when I was playing Lee Sin a lot, like Aphelios Twisted Fate, you just throw it on your Twisted Fate whenever your opponent doesn't have a ton of mana. If your plan is to like protect one of your units, try not to cast it when your opponent can remove the unit. I know that's easier said than done, but usually you can maneuver a spot where you have some extra mana, or you can cast it and baiting them into using the Mystic Shot when you know you have a Pale Cascade in your hand or something like that. Not the most versatile pick. I usually take it when my other options just aren't suitable for the game at that current moment. Like I have a full board and I get Charger and Trickster and Moonglow. I'll just take Moonglow. But yeah, not my favorite. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It's a little awkward because it's kind of hard to set up. But that being said, I'm sure you've seen it win many a game, because I know I have, on both my side of the board and my opponents. Even just on something like a Zoe that you mentioned, even like the 2 toughness actually comes in very relevant. Yeah.
Almost more than the spell shield a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like how you can kill my Zoe now, right?
There's been lots of times where I was like, oh, I'll get a Serpent, I'll just challenge. Wait, it has 3 toughness now. I can't actually challenge it down. Yeah. Or something like an Avalanche, for instance. That's another one that you can protect her from.
Cool trick. Blighted Ravine goes through spell shields.
Mm-hmm.
But Moonglow's toughness will keep your Zoe alive, or your Aphelios, through the Blighted Ravine, because it keeps the extra toughness. So it will still have a spell shield. It will just have 2 damage on it as well when the dust settles. So that's been coming up a lot for me, actually.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Moonglow comes up more often for me when the other 2 options are something I'm just not going to want. It's like Moonlight and the Charger or something. Yeah. I'm just like, I guess we're going.
I don't need these.
I guess we're going.
It's
Moonglow.
It's the more flexible option.
Yeah.
I take it a lot when I have bad invokes.
Yeah.
It's very low chance that I'm invoking to look for Moonglow. It happens. usually on Zoe or Lee, like I said, but not as often.
Yeah, are there specific matchups where you're trying to get it on the lead where it's like really important? How maybe like against freeze decks,
Yeah.
perhaps?
Yes, I was going to say it's against Frostbite. Any decks that runs Frostbite or Hush, because they're not actual removal. So like I don't have to sneak it past a Vengeance or anything. So if I cast it on their turn, then they have to like remove it and Frostbite or Hush my Lee. So that's when I take it a lot. Now, when your game plan isn't revolving around all inning with one unit, it becomes a lot less strong. So like the Aphelios decks don't want it as often as the Lee decks do, because both Zoe and Lee are like kind of, they're both your win conditions. If you flip Zoe, you're probably going to win the game, and if your Lee doesn't die, you're going to win the game. So Moonglow's a lot more relevant there than it would be in like an Aphelios deck. Yeah, if Aphelios doesn't die, you're probably going to win the game, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah,
It doesn't have that I win right now, right?
Totally. And I think it's important for people to realize that Spell Shield is kind of like, those spells that we're mentioning, Hush and Frostbite are burst speed. So like a Spell Shield kind of counters them ahead of time, in essence, which is like kind of the only thing you can do against burst.
Because how are you going to respond? Otherwise, you just have to have a Spell Shield. You'll see when I play Lee Sin, you'll see me Bastion into open attack a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm playing around Hush or Frostbite. I'm saying, okay, now you have to have two, right? You have to have two of them now. Good luck. Whereas normally they just like freeze my Lee and then I cry. So yeah, that comes up again. Not my favorite, but I do take it a lot. Now on to one of my favorites, top 3 probably, Crescent Strike.
Ooh.
3 mana, slow speed spell, stun 2 enemies. This is an incredibly powerful card. Incredibly powerful. Usually around turn 3 to 5 range, when your opponent plays that Shen on turn 4 after playing a Fiora, and you just stun them both. Oh man! Or
Blowout.
your opponent crescendoms the Boxtopus, just stun him. It comes up a lot. You can use it offensively. Stunning 2 units is very strong, especially if your opponent has like a temple and like 2 units. You just stun them both. They're low on board space. They have to start sacrificing things if they don't want to die to your army. Yeah, super strong card, very flexible. I look for this one a lot. What about you?
Yeah, definitely top 3 easily. Maybe even top 2. I'm taking a look here. Maybe even number 1. Actually, this might be above the Serpent for me. It's close. I think it's between this and the Serpent.
Very, very close. Yeah. It's probably Serpent, Equinox, and Crescent Strike for me. But when I'm looking for Equinox, I'm usually also looking for Crescent Strike, because they kind of
tough choice. Those 3 are definitely top 3 though. I think undeniably. Followed by like the Messenger when like you don't need specifically one of those.
Good boy.
This is a good boy. Crescent Strike's so good. Like you're saying, just blows out attacks. I didn't realize it when I first started playing Targon and Invoking. I was like, I lost this game. Whatever. And chat was like, yo, you should have got that Crescent Strike and just stun both their guys. I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been really good. That would have been like game changing. Oh, I should start doing that more. And then I started doing that more and I started winning more. It's incredibly powerful. Yet again, another card that, frankly, you can't go wrong with. You're probably always going to find some situation where it's going to be good.
Are you beating down? Use it to stun their blockers. Are you getting ran over? Stun their attackers. A very common play pattern for me, playing against an aggressive deck with like a big 3-drop champ, like MF, Draven, Riven, something like that, is attack with Zoe on 1 or 2, right? And then super cool star chart on 3, looking for Crescent Strike.
Yeah.
That happens all the time against Fiora decks too. And it just completely shuts them down. It buys you 2 extra turns, which is just huge. So yeah, very big on this card. It's very good. You should take it a lot.
Yeah, it's one that I think is very subtle. I think you have to kind of play with it to really understand its true power level. Can't speak highly enough of it.
Very good card. In a board lock type state where the stun isn't as relevant, it can still pop spell shields for the bigger celestial units like Great Beyond, which comes up more than you would think.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just a really good card. Just a really good card.
Very versatile.
Probably my second least pick coming up next. Trickster. 3 mana 3/3 with elusive. Very strong card on its own. In a vacuum, a 3 mana 3/3 with elusive is insane. With no drawback. Right? That's like nuts. But these celestial cards are higher power level than actual normal cards. That's why you have to like go through troubles to get them. And it's just not very flexible, and it's a huge mana investment. Normally, if I'm invoking, it's like if I'm invoking the smaller celestial cards, it's earlier in the game. I'm hitting off Zoe, I'm casting my Spacey Skechers, the Fangs, right? And so I don't have 3 mana to spare on a 3/3. Again, normally if I'm invoking, I'm not aggressive. So I usually use it defensively, and it's not very good defensively. Like, yeah, it blocks a Burblefish, but why wouldn't I just take Crescent Strike? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it can be removed. So I could just take this Equinox, and it's a much more mana effective answer or mana efficient answer. It's a good card. The most often use for it for me is I know I'm going to flip my Zoe, and I want to give everything elusive. So I take it, and I usually play it as the 10th card to flip Zoe, give everybody elusive, and win the game that way. But other than that, I don't take it very often.
Yeah, same here. There's just not nearly as many use cases. Even like if you're trying to attack for lethal, if your opponent's like low on health, like maybe you just take Crescent Strike and stun 2 things, or maybe you take the Charger and like try to overwhelm. It does come up. There have been times.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fewer and far between.
Mm-hmm. The other ones have just been better for me. Yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, that's all of our 3 mana or less. That doesn't mean don't take it. That just means don't like always take it. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
There's probably a better option. If it's good, you'll know when it's good, right? It'll be like, oh, I need, and like we're both low on cards and I need an elusive threat, or oh, I have to block this Great Beyond or Teemo or Zoe or whatever. Then you'll be like, this is what I need. But yeah, other than that, I don't really take it.
Yeah. So that's all 8 of the 3 or less costed invokes. Like I said before, there's 3 different cards that can go and get them. Next up, we have the Priestess that can get invokes that cost 4, 5, or 6. And she is the only card, I believe, that gets this specific range of invokes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Arguably the most powerful invoke card. Probably the most widely played. Like Star Shaping gives it a good run for its money, but Lunary Priestess is such a good role player in the Targon decks because they're kind of light on very impactful like 3 through 6 mana cards. So yeah, Priestess just comes down, perfectly slots in there. Yeah, the cards are fantastic. Let's go over them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I was like, no, there's not 4. There's 6 choices. The first one, Written in the Stars, 4 mana burst spell, draw champion. It costs 1 less and give it +2/+2. Very strong card. I don't take it very often. I usually take it in more combo centric decks like Karma or Lee, where my champion is how I win the game. But it's good. I do take it in Zoe decks sometimes because 0 mana 3/3 Zoe is very strong. Probably the one I take the least, honestly.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm the same boat. It's just like you're paying mana to invoke a card, and then you have to pay 4 mana to get your champion, and then you have to pay again to cast your champion. It's extremely expensive. So I rarely, if ever, get it. That said, though, I've gotten blown out by it a number of times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it happens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like the champion getting bigger is very important. It costing one less. Something to really keep in mind is when your opponent casts it, remember that their champion could now
Could
cost
come down
one
early.
less. There's been lots of times where I've been like, oh, they can't cast whatever it is, Zoe because they don't have any mana, Lee because they only have
Lee,
4,
yeah.
and then I'm like, oh yeah, right, costs one less. So I've been gotten by that a few times. Also, it being +2/+2, it being a little bit larger. Also, I forget that that's going to be a thing when it's coming. So
Yeah.
definitely keep in mind.
I saw this cast a lot more when Zoe Aurelion Soul was more popular deck that was played, because you either get Zoe for 0 or you get Aurelion Soul for 9. And usually if you're taking this card, you have plenty of time. Because like otherwise you're taking like anything else, right? That immediately affects the board. Um, so later in the game you're like, oh well, I just need an Aurelion Soul, so you just cast Written and then you win the game. Don't see it taken very often now. Like you said, it's so mana hungry. It's just really hard to take that huge tempo loss.
Yeah, then also you don't know for sure which one you're going to get, right? Maybe
Yeah,
you put all
yeah,
that
you
mana
could
and
get
you
the
get a Zoe and you're like,
double.
oh man,
You're like, yeah.
that one.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one, Traveler. I like Traveler a lot. There's a common joke going around that you just always take Traveler, and it's not the worst thing in the world. A 3/4 body for 4, not bad. And it just invokes. It hits the entire invoke pool, so you never know what you're going to get. You are, I believe, more heavily weighted to hit the lower mana cards, but I'm not actually sure. Um, don't quote me on that, please. But yeah, like a 3/4 body for 4, fantastic. And then you just get to roll the dice again. So if your options suck for your current circumstance, pick Traveler. It's never bad. Never a bad pick.
Yeah, it's kind of like the messenger.
Mhm.
It's a lot of times the other two cards you just won't be relevant, and you'll be like, okay, grab this, or just aren't particularly good, and so you can just take the traveler and invoke again. It's also just card advantage. It's just another warm body that's going to come down and then get you yet another invoke card. There's lots of times where you end up like chaining them off of each
Mhm.
other, and you can kind of just bury your opponent in card advantage potentially, or you just keep digging for a specific card, which happens a lot. Because like I mentioned earlier, it is sort of a toolbox of cards, of answers, and also threats that are good in specific situations or against specific decks. So yeah, often happy to see the traveler. Often taking it when you invoke on turn 3, and then you can take it. You can play it and play it on turn 4, invoke again. Ends up being a pretty common line of play.
Yeah, super strong. I have started taking it a lot more in the last month or so than I used to. Um, Now that I've had more experience with Targon, I've just been more into the card. It's just really good. Like you said, it's great value. It's card advantage. It's a good stat line. Solid. Yeah, the line of like Priestess into Traveler into Cosmic Inspiration will just like win you a game,
Oh yeah.
which is so funny, and it's happened to me a couple of times on both sides of the table. All right, moving on. Meteor Shower. 5 mana slow speed spell. Deal 5 to an enemy, 1 damage to another. This could go to champions or followers. This is a really good card. It's probably my go-to against TF Fizz because it kills TF and a Burble. It's just good. If your opponent is trying to attack you down, Meteor Shower is usually the best choice. Unless obviously you can't pick something off with the 1 damage, then it's a lot less good. But I love this card. I take it a ton. What about you?
Yeah, 5 mana deals 4 to one creature, 1 to another creature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take it a
Or
lot as
champion.
or champion. Yeah, any unit. I take it a lot as well. Like you say, you get a 2-for-1 out of it quite often. We're able to pick off 2 units. Burblefish are running around all over the place. There's a lot of really powerful 1 toughness units. Sometimes you're able to deal some damage with your kind of little dirtily creatures that you have lying around early in the game, and then you're able to pick off 2 things with it. Yeah, I end up taking it a lot. I really like it. It's very powerful for its cost.
Oh yeah,
Big
like it's 5 mana for this is insane. Don't get greedy against decks like Targon. Let's say they have a Zoe. and something else. Don't go like 4 damage on something and 1 damage on Zoe when they can have like Pale Cascade. You will get blown out and it will feel bad.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's not worth it. Just get rid of what you need to get rid of with the 4 damage and ping something else. Obviously, if your opponent has shown they don't have it or are like out of mana, then yeah, go nuts. But yeah, I highly advise if your opponent has like a Zoe or something and you need to get rid of it, just 0.4 damage at it. Just get that shit out of there.
I've made that mistake lots of times. Like, this Twisted Fate
Yep.
will die here, right? Oops, maybe not.
Suit up. All right. The Warrior, 5 mana follower with Challenger, 5/5. This is a card I never used to take, ever. I just always thought the other ones were better. I have changed my mind. This card is very good. This card in combination with Temple is kind of insane.
Yeah.
It just constantly gets bigger. It threatens everything. 5 mana 5/5 is like big. And then you add Challenger and it crushes anything that could have been played earlier in the game. Any champion, doesn't matter, just takes them out. You combine this with Temple or Aphelios guns, and you have just a removal spell every turn, right? It's just going to be taking something out. This thing dominates board states at this point in the game. And yeah, I've gravitated towards taking it a lot more often than I used to. Still probably not the one I take the most, not even close, right? But I take it a lot more than I used to.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because there's often Meteor Shower in the same sort of range that's also can kill a creature, and so sometimes I'll get tricked into taking the warrior, trying to be like, oh, I could kill a creature and then kill some more creatures, but then they'll just kill my warrior and I won't actually get to kill the creature I need to.
Or like Gravitum it and you're like, oh
yeah, stun it or something. You're like, oh. So yeah, can be very good, but gotta be careful, don't be too greedy. Also just a 5/5 for 5 sometimes very hits face. Yeah, sometimes goes smash. So solid card.
I take it over. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Just gonna say it's solid card. Kind of has its like time and place.
Usually I take it over Meteor Shower when I don't absolutely need to remove something. Like if I need this Aphelios or Twisted Fate to die, I'm taking Common or Meteor Shower. But if I don't really need it to die right now, maybe it's like a Fiora that hasn't gotten to take off or something like that, then I'll just play Warrior because it's also incredibly good on defense. It's still a 5/5 and you're Targon, so you have like a billion ways to make it bigger. Yeah, so I take it more often in that circumstance when something doesn't need to die right this second, but I want to put that pressure on the board.
Yeah, another little good piece of information that someone said in my chat one time was kind of, if you have like a lot of units, maybe take a spell. If you have a lot of spells, maybe take a unit. So that's another thing. Like maybe if you have a bunch of like pump spells, removal spells, and interactive spells, well, now the warrior is looking a lot better than like a Meteor Shower.
Totally. Speaking of removal spells, we have 6 mana slow speed Comet, Obliterate an enemy. I probably take this one the most. It's really good.
Yeah, it does work.
This is like, this is the card. And if you've ever played Lee Sin Mirrors where you're like invoking, you're just digging for comets, right? Like, or if you ever play against Lee Sin, you're just looking for Comet every time. No questions asked. Get this guy out of my face. This card does it all. It's good. The only problem is 6 mana is a lot to deal with one thing. So if you're facing an aggressive deck, it's probably not what you want to do. If you're facing like Draven Jinx, I can't afford to spend a mana to obliterate something. Meteor Shower, yeah, I could kill a Jinx and I can kill one of their pumped up Poros, right? But Comet, usually I cannot afford to take that time off. It does blow up landmarks as well, which comes up a lot more now that Veiled Temple is so dominant. I used to use it against Starspring a lot in the Tom Kench deck, but you don't see that deck very often anymore. But yeah, it's a super good card. It absolutely hoses the Scargrounds deck. Absolutely shuts them down.
Okay, right? That makes sense.
Because without it, they just have a bunch of dinky units and a Braum. You can just blow up their Scargrounds and laugh all the way to the bank. I love this card. I take it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like, Vengeance is a good card. It's 7 mana fast, kill a thing. This is 6 mana slow, kill a thing. And it obliterates, which is very relevant, meaning that none of the, like, death triggers happen. Or the Harrowing used to be a card that we would see a lot. And so if you obliterate a creature, it doesn't come back with the Harrowing or other spells like that that bring things back to life. Very, very relevant. Yeah, I get this a lot. Targon does not have a lot of like removal, like direct removal, or
So you
any
have to
even.
invoke it.
So you have to. So this is what you end up doing. You go and get this card to deal with stuff. Yeah, probably the one that I get the most out of this pool of cards as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on. Golden Sister, 6 mana, 4/3 unit with lifesteal. When she is summoned, summon the Silver Sister, which is a 4/3 elusive unit. This card is super duper strong.
Stay hot.
Oh yeah, yeah. This card ends games, and gets you back into them. It's good. It's very good. Its stock has dropped since Aphelios because Calibrum and Gravitum are so effective against it, but it's still an incredibly strong unit. The only thing really holding it back is that you need the board space. If you have, because you're playing Targon, so you have these dinky Invoke units. Usually you're getting this card off of Lunary Priestess. So you have a Dustbringer, a Spacey Skecher, a Lunary Priestess, and a Temple, and maybe something else. Then if I play in it like a Aphelios, right? If I play Golden Sister, I'm not getting the Silver Sister. So don't take it when your board's too full, unless you think you can trade off enough. Yeah, it's really good. It stabilizes. It gives you 2 blockers. One of them has lifesteal. It's a 4 power elusive threat is huge. That's a huge threat. So yeah, I take this a lot. I take it less often than I used to, but very, very, very strong card.
Yeah, I'm the same boat. I used to take it all the time, and it would just end games. It would just swing a game by itself. Yeah,
Boop, I win.
done. A good way to think about it is you get these 2 units for 6 mana. So basically, each unit costs 3 mana. So imagine a 3 mana 4/3 lifesteal or a 3 mana 4/3 elusive. Like, those are both very powerful. I'm the same boat though. I find that in the current meta, it's not quite as good as it was. Like, it used to just like it was just game over like so often, and now I find that a lot of my opponents have been able to kind of, I don't know, just kind of blow past it, not care about it as much. Yeah, still good, but its stock has dropped for sure currently.
It's less good against TF Fizz than I expect it to be because it just trades with a Burble Fish.
Yeah.
And then the lifesteal unit doesn't ever block anything. It's just attacking or dying to get excited. I usually end up taking Meteor Shower in that matchup over Sisters, unless the situation calls for it. Yeah, very, very good card. Just a little less good than it used to be. Make sure you have the board space if you want to take it.
Yep.
Fantastic against like the Overwhelm decks because it just gives you a bunch of blockers. Same thing with like the Ash decks. Just make sure you're not walking into Reckoning. Yeah. It's my 2 cents.
Yep. 100% agree with you. Okay, so that is all of the 4, 5, and 6 drops. So now we go to the 7 to 10 casting cost invoke cards, of which there are
cards.
Yeah, of which there are oh yes, okay, so Star Shaping is 7 or more. And then there are a bunch of cards that will get any invoke.
So Star Shaping is the only one that
so a soul
this range.
A soul will also get 7 or more when it comes into play. Is the other sort of one. Gotcha. And then there's a bunch of cards. We'll go over here. We got Behold the Infinite, which is a 2 mana burst that just invokes, which frankly I'm surprised doesn't see more play on its own, because I feel like that's really powerful. A little surprised to see.
It just, the problem is like it just hits the whole field.
Yeah, it's too random, right?
I would probably rather play Super Cool Star Chart, and I'm not playing that card either. Because I want to know what I'm getting. Like, if I know that all the cards are going to be 7 cost or more, I'm just not going to cast it for a long time. And if I know the cards are going to be like the Super Cool Star Chart, then 0 to 3, I'm going to cast it early and look for that like early advantage. The problem is you have no idea what you're going to get. It's so random.
Yeah, makes sense. Another one is the Lunary Priestess, which actually does see a decent amount of play. So this is a 3-mana 2/1 that Nightfall invokes. So this at least, is always a warm body. It's at least a creature that also allows you to invoke. There's the Mountain Scryer. This sees a decent amount of play as well. It's a 4-mana 2/3 for Allegiance, meaning that the top card, if the top card of your deck is Targon, you get to invoke. Feels bad when you miss. And then all of your celestial cards cost 1 less, which is extremely powerful, especially if you ever get multiple Mountain Scryers in play. It just gets out of control.
That's when you start chaining Travelers for 2 mana.
1 or 2 mana Travelers, yeah, just insane. There is the Traveler. Can you just play it? No. Yeah. Okay. It's just it's in this list for some reason. But it's okay. Keep going. 5 mana Moon Dreamer is a 3/5 for 5 that when you play invokes, sees a little bit of play. Not too much though.
For a second in like the Targon Allegiance decks, don't play it now.
Yeah. And then we have Star Shaping, maybe the king of the invokes itself. That sees a lot of play. This is a 5 mana burst spell that you can heal an ally or your nexus for 5. Very powerful. And then this one allows you to invoke a celestial card that costs 7 or more. So you basically always know that you're hitting one of these big, powerful top end spells. And then, of course, there's Aurelian Soul, Space Dragon himself, 10 mana, 10/10. When you play him, invoke a celestial card that costs 7 or more, just like Star Shaping. At round start, create a random celestial card in your hand. Very powerful. Also has Spell Shield, if that wasn't enough, and Fury. Not to mention he levels up when your allies have 25 or more total power at the end of round. And when he does level up, all of your celestials now cost 0 mana, and you basically just go brrr, you die.
You just won the game.
Yeah, the game is just over as you just flood your opponent with a bunch of ridiculous cards that now cost 0. And yeah, it's gross. I love it. One of my favorite things. One of my favorite ways to win, frankly. Okay, so speaking of those big, expensive, powerful gross cards, what do we got first?
Okay, so real quick on Star Shaping before we jump in. Star Shaping does 2 things. 1, it gains you life, which is very good in Targon. And 2, it's a win condition all on its own. So if you play 2 or 3 copies of Star Shaping, you don't have to have an actual win condition because it's going to give you one. You can find these big cards, Living Legend, Great Beyond, Immortal Fire, Destroyer, Scourge, and you just win the game with them. It just ends the game. So you'll see that a lot on Targon decks where it's a lot of dinky units, some hushes, maybe Aphelios, Temples, and a bunch of Invoke things, and then 3 copies of Star Shaping, and that's where the curve ends because the Invokes fill in the gap. All right, with that, let's get into it. First one, 7 mana, slow speed, Cosmic Inspiration. All allies everywhere have +2/+2. This card is good.
It might be my favorite.
It's probably my favorite to take. Yeah. Because like everything you do from then on is it's so strong. Your Spacey Skechers are 3/3s, right? Like it's so good. Your Chargers are lethal threats on their own. Like the card's great. If you want to win the Targon Mirror, you take Cosmic Inspiration. You obviously can't take it if you're already behind or you have no units left. You do need to behold another Celestial to cast this card. You'll see that repeated with the 3 big spells. That is important. So if you don't behold means it's either on the board or in your hand. You need another Celestial unit on the board in your hand, which is pretty easy to pull off with Targon. You have that Messenger sitting around. You haven't cast the Equinox yet from earlier. You should plan for it. So often you'll see me on turn 9 or 10, instead of like start with my Meteor Shower or whatever, I'll cast Star Shaping first to see if I need to hold the Meteor Shower, to see if I need to hold the Meteor Shower in my hand to be able to cast the spell I want to cast. But yeah, very, very strong. You dominate combat for the entire rest of the game. It's so hard for your opponent to deal with all your guys just being so much bigger.
Yeah. So just to recap, it's a 7 mana slow spell. Gives all your units everywhere for the rest of the game +2/+2. And you do have to behold another celestial card, which is a common theme amongst a few of the cards we're going to go over, and very important to keep in mind because I've definitely grabbed these cards when I don't have a celestial, and
and
oopsie, you can't cast them, or if the celestial card is in play, your opponent can remove it. Is that correct? Can your opponent remove it and it fizzles the card?
So if I have a messenger in play and I cast Cosmic Inspiration and my opponent Mystic Shots my messenger, my Cosmic Inspiration fizzles. It does not resolve, which sucks. It feels so bad. You're like,
gotcha. Sorry, what? What just happened?
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. So yeah, very good. You take it when the game's going to go long and you don't have to kill anything right then and there, and you have a lot of units. It makes all your invoke things, like even the units that invoke, like Lunary Priestess is now a threat. It's a 3/4 for 3. Whereas before, in Target you have a lot of dinky things that like just sit around because they invoke. This turns them into actual like
threats
on the board, which is huge. Moving on with these spells, we have Cosmic Rays at 8 mana slow. You do have to behold a Celestial to cast this, but it obliterates all enemies with 3 power or less. This is champions included. This is the Anivia killer. It just obliterates everything. So if your opponent's going really wide, you take Cosmic Rays, consider their whole board. I don't really ever take it. I used to against Anivia. You just like take it as soon as you saw it because eventually they're going to cast Harrowing and you just wipe their entire board and they don't get the death triggers for Anivia. But it just doesn't come up very often. What about you?
Yeah, same. Soraka Tom Kench is another one that pops into mind that it could be good against.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even then, I'm like, I'm gonna get you, and then they like somehow pump some of their units that actually matter, and they survive.
Like Supernova.
And,
they're landmark.
So it's every now and then you can get them. I find that the better the player, though, the more prepared they are, the less kind of exposed they'll be to getting blown out by it. But yeah, I've tried many times, and I feel like rarely does it actually work. And the times that it does, I feel like maybe I would have just won those games anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I'm probably already winning the game.
Yeah.
If you see Tom Kent, Soraka, or Anivia, be prepared. But other than that, you'll know if there's a time when it's really good. But usually I would rather take the next spell we're getting into, Supernova. 9 mana, slow speed. You have to behold a celestial card to cast it, obliterate 2 enemies or landmarks. This card is insane. It, no questions asked, just gets rid of whatever you want. This card is a huge trump in the Targon mirrors. All the big star shaping cards are huge trumps in the Targon mirrors, but this can kill a Temple and an Aphelios, Twisted Fate that's about to flip. If you've gotten rid of Spell Shield on the big celestial units, you can blow one of them up. You can get rid of Immortal Fire, just done. I take this card a lot on star shaping.
Same. Just does work. Being able to get rid of 2 units is of your choosing is massive. Plus the landmark, which also can come in clutch. But yeah, if you think about it, it's 9 mana to kill 2 things, so it's like 4.5 mana to obliterate a thing. Like, man, that's a really good cost. And then also, your opponent can only, like, if you play it, they can only play 1 unit before you get to attack. So a lot of times you'll be able to open up some space and push through a bunch of damage with it as well.
Oh yeah.
So
have you ever had where you both have like multiple temples in play and then you blow up their temples?
Oh yeah.
Just shoot both of them and then they're like, huh.
And then they fall behind really fast.
Way fast. That does come up. Very good, very flexible card. I advise you take it a lot. The last spell we have, then before we get onto the units, is Living Legends, the big haymaker of the celestial cards. 10 mana, burst speed. Fill your hand with random fleeting celestial spells. Refill your mana. I was a little confused when I first saw this. This does not refill your spell mana.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. But yeah, fills your entire hand with random fleeting celestial units. Usually you can cast 3 of them, I would say on average, with 10 mana, unless you're like looking specifically for one. Sometimes some things that will happen is be like, okay, I really need to find Supernova. So I star shaping and I miss. I don't hit supernova, but I do hit living legends. So next turn, I just try again. I just
Yeah.
cast living legends and look for supernova again, right? Because I need that specific card. This card's insane. If you if you take it, then you just try to like trade the board and trade cards in hand one for one. Just trade as much, trade as much, trade as much, and then you're both low on resources. You just cast living legends and run away with the game.
Yeah. So things to keep in mind here, like keeping space or making space for it in your hand, like trying to get rid of stuff that you don't really need or care about, so that you'll get more cards because it caps out at 10. Another thing to keep in mind is I've cast it. At first, I was always casting it when I had 10 full mana. And then I tried casting it when I had 7 mana and like 3 spell mana, and I thought I was going to get 10 mana, but nope, you just get 7.
And then you can't cast the more expensive cards.
Exactly. Yeah, so something to keep in mind there. Tutoring again, like you were just saying, that's very common play, because typically you're either looking for that supernova, like the big removal, or one of the big finishers we're about to go over. Sometimes you hit Cosmic Inspiration. We hit sometimes too. It does good work. My favorite time to cast it is when you flip an Asol. You get it, and you flip an Asol, and then you just get a bunch of cards that cost 0, and you just like, you just go off of the most.
Living Legends cost 0. So you cast all the cards in your hand, cast the 0 mana Living Legends, and go back up to 10 mana. Fill your hand with 0 mana cost Celestials. There's a clip of me on Reddit that like kind of blew up, where BBG flips Asol and casts like 3 Living Legends.
Oh my god!
In the same turn, and he ends up playing Zoe. Like he goes all the way down to 0 mana, and then like plays a Zoe, flips her, gets like 3 of the Scourge on the field. Everything's elusive and lifesteal. Like it was disgusting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so flip Day Soul Living Legends, very good. Card's good.
Do it once before you die. You gotta live a little.
Yeah, it's fun.
You gotta do it.
You'll have that like feeling.
Yeah.
All right, on to the units. At 7 mana, the cheapest one we have of the Star Shaping package, the Destroyer. Overwhelm, Spell Shield, 7/7. And then all the big units have, when I'm summoned, grant me +1/+0 for each celestial card you played this game. That usually ramps up to be play 3 to 4 by the time you cast this. It's about normal. I usually see somewhere between 2 and 4, I think. If I'm casting this in like turn 9 or 10. So not nothing, the ability is not nothing, but the overwhelm is huge. It's very big. It comes in handy a lot. Usually I take Destroyer when I didn't find the Great Beyond.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's better. Like Destroyer is, if you're looking for a finisher against Fizz TF, Destroyer is better than Great Beyond, because they can't handle the overwhelm, but they can block elusives forever. They can just throw Poros in front of it. So yeah, it's really good. Often that will come up with this is on a Zoe flip, giving everything overwhelm and spell shield. So strong. So strong. I do take it relatively often. It's a great target for your temple to keep pumping.
Yes.
What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's the cheapest of the units, which ends up being quite important. The other units we're talking about are 8, 9, and 10 mana, and so typically when you cast them, you probably can't do a lot else that turn. Whereas with the Destroyer, if you have the full 13, you maybe have an extra 5 to play with. If you have a temple, you have an extra 7. Makes a huge difference, or even more. Because the other units we're going over, they seem more powerful. They cost more, they're bigger, but the Destroyer, I think, ends up doing more work than any of them.
It's great. The Great Beyond's probably like the best, but Destroyer is probably second best. It's also one of the only ones that you can cast off a Star Shaping the turn you play it. You can do it on turn 9 and turn 10 with 12 and 13 mana. Whereas you can never do that with Great Beyond outside of like Temple Shenanigans or Moon Silver. So that comes in handy a lot, because usually like, you're sitting there and like, you're getting in a top deck war and you draw Star Shaping and you go, cool. And then you cast it, and I want to cast something right now. So I just pick Destroyer. Great card. Yeah. You'll probably take it a lot. It's pretty good. All right, next one. The Immortal Fire. 8 mana, 6/5, elusive. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+0 for each celestial card you played this game. The first time I would die, fully heal me instead. So this card gets 2 lives. It's a very strong card, unless you're playing its Targon, because they just hush it, and it's bad. I used to take this one a decent amount when Ezreal Draven was very popular. I no longer ever take it. I don't think I've taken it in the last 50 games I've played. It just gets hushed. It gets gravitomed. It just does less than all the other options, I feel like. What about you?
Yeah, see, I've gotten it a lot, and I feel like it's been bad for me a lot. I'm just like, how do they keep killing this 6/5 elusive twice or answering it some other clean way? It's shocking. Absolutely, because and so when I started playing, I was like, okay, so spell shield, it's okay, but like anything could pop a spell shield. I was like, this has to, you have to deal 5 damage to it twice or something. You have to kill it twice. That's so like you can't just vile feast that or red card that and then kill it. But yeah, it turns out that it's actually much more difficult for your opponent to deal with a large spell shield creature most of the time than an Immortal Fire. Even against when you mentioned Easy Draven, I was like, man, even then they were able to like
killed a lot.
They killed it a lot. A shocking amount. So
I do stand by. I think that was an incredibly strong card against Ezreal Draven. But you're right, they killed it a lot. You can what happened to me a lot is I would just freeze it like a couple turns in a row. It also is the smallest, right? Only 6 power. It does get the pump from all the Celestials you played, but until later in the game, that doesn't really matter. So like you play it, you spend your whole turn, 2 turns actually, because you have to cast Star Shaping and then you have to cast it. And you attack me and I take 6 and I move on with my day. Also, elusives can just chump this forever. It has no other, and elusives are everywhere right now. It has no overwhelm, nothing like that. So yeah, not very big on this card. I usually give it a pass.
Yeah, are there any like defensive situations that you might grab it against? Or like, oh man, I just like I can block, kill something, and then keep it alive, block, kill something, or is it still like just always
destroyer, right?
Yeah, still like destroyer blocks really well also.
Yeah, not big on this one. Used to be pretty big on it. It used to just be better, but not very good right now. All right, the King Daddy, not actually the King Daddy, but the Big Mama, the Queen Mommy, arguably the best of the units here. The Great Beyond, 9 mana, elusive, Rage, Fury, and Spell Shield. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+0 for each celestial card. It's a dragon. It's big ass elusive dude with Spell Shield. That's what you're getting here. And it ends games. You just you play it and it can't get hushed unless they pop it. Even against like Fizz TF, you're often playing Aphelios. You can give it Overwhelm with Infernum. This card, it's just really, really good. It's probably my favorite. It's
card
not my
slaps.
favorite. It's probably the one I take the most, though. Yeah, the card slaps.
It just ends games. Simply put, like a lot of the time, they're not going to be able to block it. It's going to be somewhere between 8 and a bajillion power. And a lot of times you drop it onto the board, and your opponent, has to have like an answer right then, or they're going to die. Yeah. That's a common play. Whereas the Immortal Fire that we just talked about just doesn't happen as much. There's a lot of ways to answer it. It just doesn't happen. Whereas the Great Beyond, it comes in, it ends the games a large percentage of the time. And even if they're able to like freeze it or something or block it, like there's a good chance it's gonna come back and threaten lethal like the next turn and the turn after. Also does a great job of blocking. Just card is fantastic.
We used to see an incredibly difficult to deal with line before Bilgewater was adopted as the main like Targon pairing. When it was Shadow Isles with Atrocity, the win condition of this deck was cast Star Shaping, get Great Beyond, hit them once, and then throw it at their face with Atrocity. And that would usually be more than 20. And it was so hard to interact with. It's just incredibly powerful line.
Yeah, why do you think we don't see that so much anymore? Because Atrocity is still very strong. Great Beyond still very strong.
Bilgewater is just the much more powerful Aphelios. region to pair with than Shadow Isles. And yeah, I prefer to have the boxed push package than the atrocity package right now. It just helps Targon deal with the early game, which it needed more help with than the late game.
Right.
Uh, the the atrocity was very good against like Ezreal Draven, but that deck's not really around anymore, so you just don't really need it.
Yeah, makes
Decks can
sense.
either like decks can either like deal with your Great Beyond or counter your atrocity in some way,
Yeah.
right? So I just think the Bilgewater package is more powerful. But yeah, Great Beyond, it's fantastic. You'll probably never go wrong taking it. It's a very, very strong card. And then we got one more. This
Last
is the
up.
granddaddy. 10 mana, the Scourge. 10/10 challenger. When I'm summoning, grant me +1/+0 for each celestial card you played this game. Attack trigger. Give other allies +2/+2 and overwhelm this round. Incredibly powerful game-ending effect. It does not give itself overwhelm, by the way. Game-ending effect that you will most likely not even get off. I take Scourge and I say I attack with him maybe 20% of the time
Yeah.
because they kill it or stun it or hush it or whatever. Not as good as ending the games as like Great Beyond or usually even as like Destroyer.
Yeah. You mentioned before with the Immortal Fire not really having a way to push through damage, and the Scourge kind of has that same thing. It gives all of your other units overwhelm, but it's like how many units do you even have, and how big are they? A lot of times you got like a little dinky,
Your
bunch of little
Targon. You have like
dinky
Lunary
Targon,
Priestess.
yeah. And then so you're just like, okay, you're picking something off that's you want to kill, but it's way late in the game, so often that's not really that important. You're just smashing it for 10, which is like way too much. And yeah, all the reasons that Immortal Fire not great, also good
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. If you need to kill something, take Supernova. If you need to end the game, take Great Beyond. It's just the lack of spell shield's kind of killing it here.
Yeah.
Not a bad card. I do take it sometimes, just not super often. I think all the other ones are usually better. I will probably take it over Immortal Fire in most cases, but yeah, don't love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I wish it, because it looks so good. You want it to be better.
It looks really cool. It
Yeah.
does look really cool. All right, that's all. Of them.
That is all of them. Holy smokes, we did it. So yeah, that's all of the invoke cards, all the cards that get invoke. Are there any other thoughts that you have on the invokes as a whole, as your sort of strategy when you're invoking? Maybe when you're going to preemptively invoke or when you're pre-invoke.
Yeah.
What about when you're not?
Yeah.
Maybe you try to get a card but you miss. Any thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah. So one thing I try to do is I try not to cast the invoke card until I'm like coming up on the next turn when I can use it. So an example is I do cast Lunary Priestess on 3 because the next turn is turn 4 when my invoke cards are unlocked, right? I can cast Traveler on 4. I can probably cast Meteor Shower or Comet. But you won't see me cast Star Shaping on like turn 6 unless I like have to. Or maybe I'm down to 10 and I have nothing else to do with my mana because I'm probably not casting like Destroyer on 7. Maybe I am. But like I usually don't want to cast that card yet. I would rather just wait and use my mana more efficiently and then cast Star Shaping later. Yeah, just little tidbits. Equinox is good against Watcher. Things like that.
Yeah.
Know your plan when you go to invoke. Before you cast the invoke card, think about what you want to hit and think about what you would like to take if you don't hit that card. That's a big deal. Don't just throw the dice and like cross your fingers that something good pops up that solves your problem. Have a plan. Because otherwise you're just going to have all these invoke cards that don't quite work out in the situation. Maybe try to craft the game state and go, okay, I'm going to plan on, like, I now have Silver Sisters or Gold Sisters, sorry, the Sisters. So I'm going to try to maneuver this board state in a way where Sisters is really good. Or Meteor Shower. Maybe you take a block you normally wouldn't just to get something down to 1 toughness. So Meteor Shower can pay it off. Things like that. It's a toolbox. But if you don't have a plan, tools are kind of useless. Just, yeah, come into it with a plan.
Yeah, against basically every opponent, one of the cards or multiple of the cards, invoke cards, are extremely powerful and will probably win you the game. So you need to know which of those cards you should be looking for and digging for, and at what point in the game. We did sort of like highlight some of them, but if you're going to be playing a deck that has invoke cards, this is like, you need to know this information. It is extremely important. So if you don't know, come join us in the Discord. Ask us. We could probably
I was
tell
gonna
you.
say a great place to ask questions is the Discord.
Find out. Smooth transition.
Yep,
Didn't see it
nailed that
coming.
one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it for us today. We nailed it. Basically, hour and 10 minutes. Wrapped it all up in a pretty little bow. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think you'll get some use out of it. Because Invoke is definitely a very unique mechanic, and one that's you really do need to understand whether you're playing with it or against it. It's important.
Probably
All right,
an
Bay.
exciting episode next week.
Ooh. Why? What's happening
we got
next
a balance
week,
patch
Bay?
coming, guys. So
A balance patch.
balance.
Oh my
patch. Pretty
goodness.
exciting. So make sure you tune in for next episode. The meta should get a pretty big shakeup, and we'll be here to talk about it.
Yeah. Next week and every Friday following. Master Runeterra. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.